When getting a second passport, should you be patient and save money? Or should you get the process done faster, even if it means spending more or investing more? There are definitely two schools of thought, and in this video I want to address both and share with you just how patient I think you should be. Hi, I'm Andrew Henderson, and if you'd like to learn how to work with my team and I to put together either your second passport strategy or your entire Nomad capitalist strategy for going offshore, you can learn more at nomadcapitalist.com. Let's talk about speed when it comes to getting second passports. Now, I have numerous second passports. I've been open about some of them. I've talked about going through various citizenship by investment processes, such as St. Lucia, where you can get a passport in a matter of months. Now, I recently put out a video about a rumor about a particular European country that was rumored to be offering citizenship by investment in the coming months with a very big investment price tag. And what some of the people who commented talked about was, why would you invest so much money when you can just go and live in a country, sit back and relax, wait, and after a certain number of years go and collect your passport? And so I think it's a very interesting argument to talk about. I don't entirely agree, but I can see the merits on both sides. Now, understand that things like citizenship by investment programs exist for people who want passports very quickly. Sometimes someone comes to me and says, Andrew, I'd like to expatriate from my home country, generally the United States, and so I don't want to wait. Maybe there's a financial reason, maybe they're just wealthy in a hurry, let's just get it done. Every day means money. Now in that case, you might not spend $2 million, but you might spend $100,000 just to get the process done. What I see with a lot of the 7- and 8-figure entrepreneurs that we work with and that I interact with is time is money for them, whether they need the passport now or not. And so sometimes they just say, you know what, I don't want to change my lifestyle. I don't want to have to commit to anything. I don't want to take the risk. Let's just go and invest in, St. Lucia, for example. I'll make a $100,000 donation. I'll get the passport. And so, for most folks that I'm talking to, the €2 million route is just not as interesting. You can do the job for less money. Now, there are intermediate options between just donating a bunch of money or investing a ton of money and sitting around and waiting to be naturalized in a country to get your second passport. There are, for example, what we call fast-track naturalization programs where you're investing in good quality real estate, sometimes government bonds. There's different investment options where you actually get your money back and you get a passport more quickly. We specialize in looking for some of those more off-the-wall programs. And so those can be an opportunity. That might be something that you want to consider. You also might look at a paper residence program, something where you don't actually need to move to another country to fulfill your residence requirement for future citizenship. You can simply go, perhaps you make a small investment or do something else that gets you residence, and then you can simply leave for the majority of the time for the next 3 or 5 or 7 years, whatever the case may be. And so those are intermediate options. As always, there are shades of gray when it comes to getting a second passport. There are many different ways to go about it. But what I want to emphasize when it comes to being patient is a couple things. Number one, something has always got to give. We talk about you can get a passport fast, easy, and cheap. And so if you're choosing to move to a country to be naturalized, it's not going to be fast, but it may be easy, may not, and it probably won't cost you a lot of money, at least in comparison to a donation or a large investment. Now, the other option, the other aspect there is you are adding an element of risk. There's no telling that a country might say, even though the naturalization timeline right now is 5 years, they might stop naturalizing people. They might lengthen it to 10 years in the future. They might add a more strict language requirement. I've seen this happen numerous times. So every time you're going to choose the naturalization option, if the goal was to save money, you are adding an element of risk. Where I think you would have less risk is going with more stable programs. So for example, I often think that if I were doing this again, I ask myself, I don't know the answer because I don't really dwell on the past too much, but back when I really first started this Nomad capitalist stuff, I was fascinated by Ireland. And I thought, wouldn't it be cool to go and live in Ireland? And I could have gone to Ireland at the time. They had a business residence program that no longer exists. And I could have started a business and lived there. And had I put in my time, I probably could have been naturalized pretty easily because a more stable country like an Ireland is generally less likely to, pull the rug out from underneath you. The countries that pull the rug out from underneath you and raise the naturalization criteria while you're in process are generally the ones where the naturalization criteria were way too easy. We've talked about Paraguay before, where Paraguay was the place where everyone who wanted a fast, easy, cheap passport, where they figured you basically showed up at the airport and they just said, "Here's your Paraguay passport on arrival. You do nothing." that was kind of the what people perceived. And we got thousands and thousands of emails from folks all over the world who wanted our advice on getting Paraguay passports and stuff, until I started telling people, hey, the bloom is probably off the rose here, because they've realized that's why everyone's coming there and they don't want to ruin their reputation. So, that kind of program is one that you might want to avoid unless you're willing to do, 2 or 3 of those at the same time to, mitigate the risk that the rug will be pulled out. Back to my story about Ireland, the challenge that I would have had moving to Ireland is that Ireland is hardly a tax haven. It's not a low tax jurisdiction. Moving from the United States to Ireland, my taxes would have stayed relatively the same. And as I've talked about in other videos, my goal, number one, in leaving the United States was initially social, lifestyle, just wanting to be outside of the U.S. Taxes were what I realized eventually, hey, maybe if I'm not here, I can save some taxes, right? And so if your goal is to live the nomad capitalist lifestyle, it might be worth considering easing into a more developed jurisdiction. Ireland could be one. I mean, there's others. There's plenty of others that you could consider. But a more developed jurisdiction that has a straightforward and rather developed and rather strict naturalization guideline. Get your second passport then, and then move on. If the goal then is to lower your tax, then move on to a place that's more tax-friendly in the future. So kind of take the intermediate step of, maybe you lower your taxes a little bit, but you're still paying a decent amount of tax, but, you're working towards a good passport in a country like Ireland. But what I want you to understand in all of this is there's nothing wrong with being impatient. If you are a 7 or 8 figure entrepreneur, what I don't want you to think is that donating $100,000 to a country to become a citizen in a matter of months makes you a sucker. I do see that. My team and I actually do see that when we're working with folks. And we put a lot of effort in the last year or so into our diagnostics process to make sure that we're getting people to be totally honest about which passports they're open to. Because what we have seen is there are people who think, I'm flushing $100,000 down the toilet. I'm a savvy investor. That's not what savvy investors do. Listen, if you can spend $100,000 to save $1 million, who cares if you wasted, quote unquote, the $100,000? Now, if you don't have a need, then maybe you don't want to take that option. But for the folks that we're talking to, I do think being impatient, paying the money, oftentimes makes a lot more sense, because you know what? Time is money. If there's never any real situation where you don't have to change anything about your life. You just sit at your house, you fill out a form, and they send you a passport at no cost at all. Again, you can sit at home and you can get a passport sent to you from St. Lucia, Dominica, Vanuatu, whatever. There's a price involved. If you don't want to pay that price because you don't have the money, or you're apprehensive about spending the money, or you think it's just dumb, or because you can't get an ROI on it, or just because even if you could get an ROI and you just feel badly donating money, then the alternative requires you to potentially change your lifestyle. One thing I see when I'm helping people set up paper residences is, I'll say, hey, you need to go to this country for 2 weeks and set up your residence. And they're like, oh, but I'm so busy. I got things to do. I can't go and spend 2 weeks in this place. It's like, well, hold on a second. In the matter of a couple of years, you're going to have a passport from this country. They don't require you to spend that much time there. They'd like you to make some investment right now, and they'd like you to have a residence card, and maybe you go there once a year to renew it. If you can't put in spending a couple weeks a year to renew your residence permit on the path to citizenship, well, then that's why they have these options where you can spend more money. And so I think, being honest about what it is that you really want, if you are a high-earning person, it might be better to pay the money to not have to go and spend 2 weeks times 3 or 4 or 5 years. You might be able to make more money not going to some off-the-wall place to get your passport. Alternatively, maybe you have time. Maybe you want to spend time. Maybe you want to be in different places around the world, and you'd rather keep your $100,000 and put in the time on the ground. So I'm not saying that you shouldn't be patient. I think patience is indeed a virtue. What I want you to absolutely consider when it comes to getting a second passport is the time versus money structure. What is your time worth and what is the value for money? I also want you to consider the ROI. If you're making an investment to get a passport faster, are you going to see that return on investment? Because no matter what you do, there's always going to be some kind of trade-off. And what I especially want you to consider is there are probably options out there that you haven't thought about, that all the people who promote this stuff, Dominica, that they probably haven't told you about, that might be a happy medium. Hi, I'm Andrew Henderson from Nomad Capitalist. I wrote this book, which you can find on Amazon, to distill a lot of the stuff we talk about in these videos and a lot of the stuff I've learned over the last decade plus traveling all around the world, teaching you about how to legally reduce your taxes, build your personal freedom, and create wealth faster. Definitely get a copy of this book if you want to learn more. Now, if you want to watch more videos, make sure you subscribe to our channel and make sure you click the notifications bell so you never miss one of our new videos with more tips on how to go where you're treated best. And if you're already a 6 or 7 figure entrepreneur and you'd like to put these strategies in place for yourself, go to nomadcapitalist.com and learn about how I can help you.